What it is, what it do, cyber world. It is your girl, the one and only, Ash Brown, and this is the AshSaidit Show. Over 1,900 episodes, 500,000 streams worldwide. None of this is possible without you guys, so thank you so much. Way back when I started this show in 2014. Wow, absolutely madness.
Yeah.
So today we are joined by a wonderfully esteemed writer and author, and her new book drops pretty soon, May the 7th, the wonderful Janet Sherlund. Hey, Janet.
Hi, Ash. How are you? And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, Janet, where in the world are you today? Where are you?
Well, today I happen to be in New York City, but I actually live on Nantucket Island off the coast of Massachusetts.
Oh, wow. I'd imagine that you see a lot of changing of weather there. Like wintertime, you're seeing a lot of coldness and some snow, maybe?
Yeah. It's actually not much snow. The island is 30 miles out to sea, and so we're actually in the Gulf Stream, and it actually is warmer in the winter. But the lovely thing is, it's cooler in the summer, so it's a really nice place to be.
I've never been. Now I got to put that on my list, Janet. That sounds so amazing.
It doesn't. It's a history rich with. It's an island rich with history. The whole island is a National Historic District. So, yes, it's a beautiful place physically, and it's an interesting place. And sometimes please do come.
That sounds like the plan. All right, so before I get too sidetracked, before we forget about our whole purpose today, is talking about this new book, Abandoned at Birth. What was the inspiration behind this book project?
Well, this is really a memoir, and it's my life. But the reason I wanted to write it is I was adopted, and as were three other siblings, there are four of us all adopted in my family. And I found that as I grew up, no one understood what I was missing and what I needed, what I was trying to explain to them when I'd say I wanted to meet someone who looked like me, or how I had this big black hole in my center, and other friends and kids would dismiss it. Oh, that's not important, and I don't look like my parents, or I don't share interests with my parents, or whatever. And I realized that many people don't know what it feels like to be adopted. You hear the stories, you get it, and you hear sometimes the stories of people who have gone through search and reunion, etc. But I wanted to let people know what it felt like, because I think the issues that those of us who were adopted faced and continue to face still apply today in a variety of current issues that we all will be talking to our friends about, or maybe making decisions about at the voting booth. Things like donor-conceived individuals who are trying to find, the other half of their life stories, and all that's lost in international adoptions. So anyway, my point was really to talk about identity. So those of us who had none and didn't know where we came from and what our ethnicity was, and never seen someone who looked like ourselves, and we felt totally alone and lost in the world. What can we teach others about what makes your identity and what makes you, and allow you to apply that and those thoughts and understandings to issues that we as citizens still face today.
Wow. So as you were compiling, and really trying to get together the whole consensus of this book, what went through your mind? Did you think about did you disclose it to your family? Did they know that you were doing this?
My adoptive parents did not. My siblings did. It's been something I thought about being adopted every single day of my life. I always knew I was adopted. My parents, it was part of our bedtime story. It was not something I discovered late in life. I always knew it. And I always felt just lost and untethered and alone, and just this sense of otherness. Where did I come from? Who am I? Yeah. Why do I look like I do? And why do I have interests I do? No one else in my family shares those things. And so I something I talked a lot about, but the book, I think one of the reasons I wrote this book so late in life, even though I thought about it and talked about it and got therapy about the issues, I think I never wanted to hurt my adopted parents. And this story is the story of my life and my search for my biological parents, what I learned through meeting them compared to how it was, living without that knowledge. And it really, adoptees who search, it's really it's not about the adopted parents. It's not about something wrong there or a lack of loving care. It's about self-actualization. And so often we are so worried about hurting or offending our adopted parents that we hold ourselves back from our own truth, from taking action when we'd like to, or from speaking our truth. And I found that despite my awareness and as I moved through life, all the support I had on this topic, I still didn't feel free to write this book until, and my parents have passed away. So I really wasn't comfortable putting the story out there and risk hurting them before that.
Yeah, I could definitely see kind of withholding that just because, like you said, you had a great childhood and your parents were great and are amazing people. And I'm glad that it wasn't that, like you said, later on in life, you're 35, married with kids, and then you find out this big thing that kind of throws you into a whirlwind. So I'm super glad that they disclosed and they shared that with you early on, so that you didn't go through life believing something that wasn't true. So I definitely
I think that would have been a horrible shock too. And I know people who've experienced that, where they believe themselves to be their parents' child and are devastated to find just completely, their life just completely collapses in front of them when they find that not to be true, and they have to completely refigure out who they are.
Yeah, I've known a couple of people that have gone through that in like their early 20s, and it's a snowball effect, and it's like it's hard to watch. It's a hard thing to see someone go through. But so conceptually, from start to finish and completion, how long would you say that it took for you to complete this book?
3 years of active writing, and yet I had written bits and pieces of it throughout my life. When something major happened, I wrote about it. It's kind of, I guess, how I process difficult things. And then I'd have like a chapter or two. I didn't know it was a chapter then. I'd write a piece, essay, feelings. I'd write it and then I'd stick them away. And I didn't know what I'd ever do with them. And I finally decided I needed to write this book. And I sort of pulled them all out, and I was like, wow, thank God I wrote about that when it was happening, because I don't know if I'd remember all these details now. And so, but actively really focused on writing a book and putting it all together was 3 years. And I mean, I'm talking 8-10-hour days of writing. And I also didn't want to originally write a memoir. I really wanted to write a series of sort of vignettes of emotion that I thought I could just sort of string together, and then people would, oh, that's what it feels like. Sort of like a song or poetry. But the first person who read the 80 pages I had at that point said, we have to know you more. We have to go on this journey with you, and we have to know about your life growing up and your parents and so that's why it became a memoir, because someone really guided me to that format so that people really understood what I was trying to say and could experience the journey with me.
So ultimately, what do you want readers to get from this book?
Well, I want them to sort of have a better idea or think about. I really wanted to open conversations about what is identity and belonging. Identity and belonging, I think, are the two things. I want them to have some emotional intelligence about that, some real understanding, more than, being able to recite facts about it. But I want them to understand how those of us who've experienced it feel, so that they can can apply that more in their lives, not only to having maybe a better sense of themselves or their children or whoever they know that might be struggling with, their sense of self as we all do as we go through life. But as I had conversations about issues that may come up in the news, and they go, oh, I never really understood what it felt like to be the person without identity, the adoptee. I know that the birth mothers were feeling this way, ashamed, and the adopted parents really wanted children. Isn't that wonderful that they adopted? But two things can be true. You can have a perfectly lovely adoption and placement and have perfectly fine parents and still feel traumatized and still be, and there is such a high percentage of mental health issues in adoptees and 4 times the suicide rate as the national average. So there is a trauma there that needs to be spoken about and brought to light so that others, I think everyone can identify with the feelings adoptees have when they understand them, because we all have periods in life where we're lost or feel abandoned or grieving. And but having a better sense of the person being traded between families, I really think will help others in making up their own mind about issues that keep coming up in our world.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, a really great point, because I even look at my own life, and just knowing where you come from is that's a really big part of who you are and how you view the world, and sometimes ultimately how the world views you. So I think it's super important for people to understand where they come from and to be able to be free enough to explore that, without consequence.
Yeah, and it's not always good. I mean, some people will say, oh, I know where I come, but I don't get along well with my family, or I'd not like them or something. And also when you search, you may find things that you're not happy about or proud of in your biological and your DNA. But I think it's always really important. You have to know, first of all, if you already know it, it's the strength of knowing. It's what you know that allows you to then reject it and maybe find your own path or carve your own way in the world. But if you don't know it at all and you never had any solid foundation, there's nothing to play against. And so, but even if you find out things that are not pleasant or scary, it's better to know, because that's a cautionary tale. If you don't know those things are in you or they're in your DNA, you might overlook them as you're maybe going down that same path. And it's better to go, oh, wait, look, I didn't know I had that in me. I didn't know my biology held that. And so I think either way, to be an intact and healthy person, you have to know where you came from, what your heritage is, what your DNA has in you, and then you do your best with that.
Yeah, I totally, absolutely agree. Janet, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure.
And let everyone know the best way that they can go and get Abandoned at Birth.
Well, it's certainly sold on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, on bookshop.org, all the usual places. My website is abandonedatbirthbook.com. And on Instagram, I'm Janet Sherlund Official. And I really hope that this book just raises awareness and opens conversations, and that continue to apply beyond the adoption story. But this certainly is a memoir of my experience of having been adopted during the years of closed records and sealed adoptions.
Definitely. Well, thank you again so much for coming through. Much more success to you and your team. And, of course, this amazing book launch. Looking forward to that. Yes.
Thank you so much, Ash.
No problem. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you so much for your love and support. Keeping in mind, anyone to tell you that you can't do what you want to do. You look them square in the face. You tell them, don't believe me. Just watch. Watch what I do. Watch me make it happen. Watch me make history. That's what we're doing this for, the history books. Social media is nice, but real life is so much better. Until next time, you guys.